In today's spotlight is Mikhail Botvinnik as he took on Lajos Portisch in round 7 of the Monte Carlo in 1968. For those who don't know, Botvinnik is considered a pioneer of the game. He made his own chess school. He influenced the design of the World Championship between 1948 and 1963. He was the 6th world champion and first super GM of the Soviet Union. He's held 5 world titles, and among his pupils were Karpov, Kasparov, and Kramnik. Unfortunately, he died from pancreatic cancer in 1995, but not before leaving us, arguably, the best game of chess that this planet has ever seen. Enjoy. In this game, Mikhail Botvinnik starts 1c4. This is the English, and his protégés employed it as well. Besides Kramnik and Kasparov, Magnus Carlsen enjoys some c4 action as well from time to time. Portisch answers e5, and now we have a reversed Sicilian. You'll notice that in the typical Sicilian, it's black's c-pawn that's pushed to c5, and white's e-pawn that's pushed to e4. But here in this reversed Sicilian, we have white's c-pawn on c4 and black's central pawn on e5. And so white now enjoys the classical setup of the Sicilian with that hyper-modern counterplay that we see through the middle game, however with a tempo up. So white's going to have all of that compacted energy, but with a tempo to spare. And black is fine with this as well, because in the white side of the classical Sicilian, white enjoys some serious development. It's not complicated getting the bishops out and developed, getting the knights out and developed, and getting a fair share of the center. So black is okay with this too, albeit a tempo down. This is why the pros play it. It has to be completely explosive, as we'll see. Play continues. Knight c3, knight f6, g3, d5, c takes d5, knight takes d5, bishop g2, and now white enjoys that bishop dragon that black would typically enjoy, except it's on g2 instead of g7 and a tempo up. Bishop b6, knight f3, knight c6, knight back to b6. Now black is playing on the queen side, hoping for some pawn expansions and some threats on the a1, b1 squares, which would tie white to the defense of those squares, and it would also take a bunch of space on the queen side in the meantime, and white's attack against black's king side would be somewhat slow and somewhat lacking. So play continues. d3, bishop e7, just finishing development. Botvinnik plays a3. I think the idea here is going to be an eventual b4, knight e4, knight c5 sortie, alongside perhaps the bishop on the a1 h8, and that looks like it would be a good setup, and it would also fight back for some space on the queen side as well. Portisch launches a5, stopping all b4 expansion and getting his pawns rolling as planned on the queen side. Bishop e3, black castles, knight to a4. This is a cool move. It's looking to actually fork the pawn and the bishop, because if Botvinnik can actually achieve a 2-bishop advantage here in a wide open position, these pawns that are supposed to be pressure to, threaten promotion, then will become complete targets. It's negligible that Portisch would be able to hold this together. So the idea of trading off this knight is kind of tricky. When the knight shows up at c5, this bishop can't take it off. And again, it's double attacking. So probably in that variation, that bishop has to go back to c8. Portisch is hustling backwards, not forwards. And Botvinnik would end up with a substantial kind of an advantage there in that position. For that reason, I think Portisch rightfully played knight takes knight, queen takes knight. And now Portisch is ready to expand on the queen side and as well in the center, as we'll see. Portisch, bishop to d5, preparing the pawn push after rook to e8. Botvinnik, rook c1, doubling on the c file. And both sides are ready to go. Both of their attacks are now fully complete. Portisch on the queen side and in the center, and Botvinnik simply on the c file. At first blush, at a cursory glance, I would give all the points to Portisch. To Botvinnik, I would say, look, guy, we can't always play our best. And now Portisch is tasked with a question. Where is he going to move his knight? He's just evacuated the e-file so that he can now comfortably push the e4 pawn and cause Botvinnik's defense a little bit of damage. At the same time, he'd also like to get rolling on the queen side with perhaps something like c6, b5, maybe c5 sometime soon, and the knight back to c6. So the idea is that since this knight's going to come back to c6 anyway, probably, where's Portisch going to put his knight? He just finished making sure that his rook had good scope. Portisch plays knight back to b8. Very natural, normal, thoughtful move. However, this is completely losing. And Botvinnik finds the double exclam in the best move. Arguably, the best move in any game of chess ever played. Rook takes c7. Can you believe it? I cannot. I'm sure Portisch could not. Most people looking at this video cannot. Botvinnik, what are you doing? You're giving up material for nothing. Your attack is unprepared. Your bishops are looking at the wrong side of the board. The king is all the way over here. Botvinnik, why are you giving up material? This is something that we only do if we have initiative. This is only something we do if we can continue and fulfill our attack. Otherwise, we're going to have a losing endgame. Botvinnik, are you not having a good game of chess today? It is not Botvinnik who is wrong. It would be anybody saying that rook c7 is in any kind of a way a bad move. Portisch, bishop to c6, attacking now the queen. Rook's on pre. Rook takes bishop is forced. Still up material, however. The question is, how would Botvinnik ever continue this attack? It looks as though after f6, why isn't black completely solid? Even if the queen arrives on c4 for a check, the king just slides to h8, and that looks completely solid with a beautifully placed bishop on f8. Where would the issue be? It looks like a one endgame for Portisch. So the question is, how does Botvinnik continue the attack? Botvinnik, double exclam again. Rook takes f7. No, the king can't take the rook, because if the king takes the rook, then we have queen c4 check, queen d5 to block might be a try, but then of course knight g5 check with a discovery on the queen, and that's going to be the end of that. Of course, if rook tries to block, just simply knight g5 check, and the queen would actually have to just take it off immediately, because this would be completely winning after queen takes rook. So no, there will be no taking of the rook by the king. Instead, Portisch plays h6, which gives Botvinnik enough time to retreat the rook back to b7. And Portisch dutifully chases the rook from the 7th rank, where it will no longer exert pressure on g7. Or will it? Lajos Portisch from Hungary, queen c8, hoping to chase the rook away, but this just won't do. Queen c4 check. Now queen e6 here is the best try, but it's still a bridge too far after knight takes on e5, queen takes on c4, knight takes c4, and here Botvinnik's up a point in material, but this is just way too many pawns for Portisch to deal with. So Botvinnik's going to have a completely one endgame where Portisch's rooks would be effectively defanged by Botvinnik's Siamese bishops, and this pawn would fall as well. It's nothing but targets and glory for Mikhail Botvinnik here on forward in that variation. It was probably still Portisch's best try, but after queen c4, Portisch played the king to the corner, where Mikhail Botvinnik unveils the coup de grace that pierced the resistance, double exclam, knight to h4. Are you kidding me, Botvinnik? You are leaving the rook hanging, and your bishops still are not pointed at the correct side of the board towards the king's side. Portisch, feeling deflated, lost if he takes the rook, lost if he doesn't. Portisch takes the rook, and in comes the knight flying to g6. Check, only move, king h7, but this sets up a wonderful discovered attack where Botvinnik's knight comes out to e7 with check, threatening queen g8 checkmate. So seeing this, Portisch decides to defend his 8th rank, but it's still a bridge too far. Knight takes on e5 check. King h8 is not playable. If king h8, then comes knight f7 check. King g8, only move, discovered check, claiming the bishop and forking the queen in the rook for a completely one end game. Actually, after knight f7 check is actually best. Queen takes knight, where maybe Portisch can try and hope for something, some way, somehow. But no, this is all just done, and more done. So going back, after knight takes on e5, Portisch plays g6, probably the best try, but it's still just not enough. Bishop takes g6 check. Portisch tries to hide on g7, hoping to have time to get his pieces developed, hoping to get some kind of counterplay some way, somehow, but it's not enough. Mikhail Botvinnik, bishop takes on h6. This is where Portisch resigned. Of course, if Portisch takes the bishop, then comes queen h4 check, king g7, only move, queen h7 check, where the queen will fall, where the rook is hanging, where the other rook is hanging, and this is just too much for Portisch to contend with. And of course, if Portisch doesn't take the bishop, then comes the beautiful finish, bishop g5 check. Here, bishop can't be taken because then queen h4 checkmate follows. Only move, king takes the knight, where d4 is checkmate, where queen to e4 is checkmate, and where f4 is checkmate. Botvinnik would take dealer's choice on that. And this is arguably the best game of chess that has ever occurred on this planet, and it's been our privilege and our joy to present it for you. May your pieces find the very best squares.
Hey, check this video out to make sure that you get more important information to bring your chess to the next level.